everyone. Thank you for being here with us today for the Beat the GMAT webinar, MBA Game Plan Part 1, Program Selection and School Fit, presented by the University of Tampa. So first of all, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Tianyu Christina Wu, and I'm the International Graduate Admissions Counselor for the University of Tampa. I mainly work with international students from a majority parts of Asia, Africa, and South America. So feel free to connect with me and ask some questions. And I'm here with my colleague, David.
Hi, yes, my name is David Adams. I'm another graduate admissions counselor here with UT, and I work with our domestic business students, so domestic MBA, and then our various MS programs, so anywhere from the U.S. Oh, yeah, and Kate couldn't make it here today, so I'm actually filling in for her. Just want to let you guys know.
Yeah, so it's me and David. So introduction, briefly talking about the agenda for today. We'll talk about UT and as introduction and dive into the main part of the presentation, and we'll wrap up the presentation with a question and comment part. So throughout the presentation, if you have any questions, write down on a piece of paper and we'll discuss them afterwards. So University of Tampa is located in downtown Tampa, Florida. For international students, if you're not familiar with map of US, I put one over there. So Florida is located on the west coast, east coast of US, the Sunshine State, Florida, and Tampa is located on the east coast of Florida. So the College of Business of University of Tampa is Sykes College of Business, is AACSB accredited, and we offer the following business programs: MBA, Executive MBA program, and 3 specialized master program, including accounting, finance, and marketing. Also, the certificate in nonprofit management. Feel free to contact us to email address and phone number. Also, visit us on www.ut.edu. So this is the major part of the presentation, program selection and school fit. And David, I read an article on one of the forums. It compared with selecting MBA program to purchasing a car. I found it really interesting. It says the similarities, including both of them are expensive. You're going to write a check, you're going to spend a lot of money. There are different cars, there's so many different options, and there are different features of every single car model. Some of them may be really attractive to you, and some of them are nice, but you may not need them. So that's why we're going to talk about how to select the best MBA program for you.
Definitely, and you know, buying a car is a seriously important decision, but selecting an MBA and what program will work best for you is equally, if not more so, important, because it's going to have ramifications for the rest of your life. So we came up with kind of a 4-3-2-1 step as far as getting through the program and figuring out, or getting through selection and figuring out, you know, which program is going to work best for you. So there are 4 different ask yourselves, which we're going to go over. So it's 4 important questions that you want to ask yourself. And once you answer those questions, you're going to move on. And there's 3 different steps that we came up with for school research. And this is how, once you've answered your questions and get to know yourself a little bit, you'll be able to get into that. Then after you've done your research, there are 2 steps for coming up with a school list. And then the final phase is you finalize and you select where you want, and you start applying.
All right, so the first question of the 4 questions that you really need to ask yourself is, why do I want an MBA? There are some people, they want an MBA because they want to race. One of the neighbors mentioned about MBA program, that then the person decided that might be the reason. Or is it because you're tired of your daily job at your current work and you do not like your boss. These are different reasons, but we really need a clear reason for you to get an MBA. It is an investment. So ask yourself, do you want a career development? If you plan to change your career path, pay is realistic and it is important to us. That's one of the reasons, but not the only reason. And also important things including expand your network, professional business network, improve your leadership skill, and learn the most updated business knowledge. So listen to yourself. If you can give yourself a clear reason, that's always the first step to start with this entire school selection process.
So the next question that you want to ask yourself is, where do you want to live and work after graduation? This is going to help you kind of narrow down your focus and figure out what geographic area you're going to want to look for schools. So do you want to stick with local programs, or do you want to study overseas? Weigh the pros and cons of each. You know, a pro and it may be a con would be, you know, if you want to stay near home, being near home in your comfort zone, that could be a good thing. Or if you're really interested in kind of expanding and, you know, spreading your wings and flying, maybe you want to go overseas and it would be a con to stay. So you want to ask yourself, where do you want to live? This is going to tie into your plan for after graduation, because some schools have better recognition in certain areas than others. So you want to have a clear-cut plan of where you want to be located. And then, of course, what do you want to do? This is also going to help narrow your focus with selecting a graduate business school, because some schools specialize in different areas. So that's going to be an important factor.
Yeah, and the third question, again, it's realistic. How are you going to financially support yourself? How are you going to fund the program? Are you financially ready for MBA program? People have different types of plans financially. Are you going to use your personal saving, family support? Is your company going to pay for your tuition? For some students, there might be some type of government scholarship. Are you going to get student loans? All these questions, or you need to think before start applying. So another thing I want to mention about is the expenses is tuition and living expenses. So look at both. So for example, different area where a school is located definitely is an important factor. So for example, for United States, California and northeast part of U.S. Living expenses is a little bit higher than some other regions, just an example. So definitely consider these factors into your financial plan for your MBA program. And so that's the third question. And the next question will be a big question. David will talk about it.
And this is probably the most important question that you want to ask yourself when selecting a program. It's, what are my personal preferences on programs? So you want to really ask yourself and give yourself honest answers to what's important to you and what's really going to shape you as a professional. So is the size of the program important to you? Do you want large classes where you're doing a ton of research, or smaller classes where you have access to professors one-on-one? What's the focus of the program? Is it going to be quantitative mathematical skills that are going to be important to you for finance or accounting, or is it going to be more of the qualitative for marketing, where you want to be able to do research and pick and choose, products people will buy and won't? The campus or program culture is another area that you may want to look at. What's important? What does the program highlight as its main points? What are the program's main selling points when they talk to you about admission? Is faculty important to you? Their degree level or the research they're publishing or doing? Is that going to be important? An important factor in shaping your choice. Level of internationalism, always important for a lot of people. You definitely want to have a global perspective, especially in today's business world. So is that going to be an important factor in choosing a school for you, their global focus? And then, of course, accreditation and ranking. That's, always a factor. You definitely want to look into a school. You want to look into their accreditation and definitely their rankings as well. And there's so many different options that you can break down to choose your preferences that we could go on about.
Yeah, just the level of internationalism. There's some people, they want to expand their local networks. So for some people, it may not be the most important factor, but since the world is flat, so a lot of people do want to be in an environment with international students from other countries. For example, at University of Tampa, we have students from more than 136 countries, and it's really a nice mix as far as classroom environment. There are many case studies that international students brought their perspective to discussion, presentation, which is really nice. So ask yourself all these factors. If you can add more to your list, that means those things are important to you. It will definitely help you with later research.
Exactly.
Yeah, so now we asked the 4 questions to ourselves. You can proudly say, I really know myself personally, professionally, and academically. So we know all these, and now it's the time to look at schools. And look at schools. There are so many tools to get information nowadays. The basic one, you can go to school's website. There are a lot of things listed there, a lot more than we expect. Very useful information. Schools also have social media channels. There's some current student, alumni discussion, great information you can find that are not listed on school websites. And there are tours, exhibitions, and events, maybe even in your city, that you can meet face-to-face with university representatives and counselor. You can talk to alums, find information from them. And on GMAT's website and other exam prep website, there are always forum and information sites that you can get some ideas, and also ranking and review. We're going to talk about that later. Google search. Do some Google search. Type the school name and find out things you want to know, but definitely pick and choose. There's so many things online, right? And of course, be the GMAT webinars that you guys are here today.
So the first step, once you gather your information, in research, you're going to want to go ahead and get detailed program information. So this goes kind of back to the asking yourself the question on what's important to you. Based on that question, what's important to you for a program, that's what you're going to want to focus on when you're researching for a school. Program features, again, what's highlighted in the program. If there's any concentrations offered in conjunction with getting an MBA, for example, UT has several different concentrations like business analytics, finance, nonprofit management, entrepreneurship. So, if you have a separate area of business that you are specifically interested in, it might be good to ensure, to check and see if the school that you're interested in actually offers a concentration, so you kind of have a focus with your MBA. You'll want to check and see if there's any dual degree option available. A lot of schools will offer the option to get a dual degree. So you can get an MBA and then also a Master's of Science in something in a related business field. Check the length of the program. Certain programs, they advertise that they only take a year. Some take 2. And then, if you add a concentration or want to get a dual degree, it could extend it even further than 2 years. School facilities, you definitely want to get information and look into the facilities that institutions are using to instruct their students. You want to make sure that they're a good fit for you. If you want larger auditoriums or actual research space or a trading room. Many schools that have specialized finance, like UT, offer trading rooms for their finance students to actually go in and make real world trades. Career services offices are always going to be a great thing to research and make sure that they're going to work for you. Being able to get your resume updated, using school websites to find employers or internships is a very important thing because, again, the MBA program, you not only want to get the education, but you also want to gain the professional experience and extend a network to build your network, because that's going to be important for job placement post-graduation. And then, of course, you definitely want to check into admissions requirement, the GMAT, whether or not the GMAT is accepted there or needed, required for admission is going to be important, what kind of score that they're looking for. whether or not work experience is a requirement for the program, and then, for international students, if there's a language proficiency exam that's required in order to get in, like TOEFL or IELTS.
Yeah, and school facility, you may not think that's important on the top of the list, but some student did mention that that's important to have, like, all the computer high tech, like David mentioned, trading room. All these things are definitely necessary to look into, because you will be in a program more than 1 year, 2 year. And for Career Services Center, look online, and there are always reports on graduate students' success rate, job replacement rate, what are the companies they get the position before the graduation and after 1 year that they graduated. So there are always data charts that you can find on their career websites. So and all these information, you need to take notes, start a Word document, so you know that you have things like really clear on the schools that you want to go to. Okay, so return on investment. It is important if you study business for undergrad, you know what is ROI. I just threw a very simplest formula there, gain minus cost divided by cost. And the gain here is not only the financial, like the money-wise, cost is not only the money or the pay. Yeah. So, but definitely, trust me, it's important. What we want to say here is just the tuition you pay compared to after graduation, your salary raise, or what is the salary of your first job compared to all of the other factors. So, for example, the non-money factors for gain is if you start the MBA program, if you do an MBA program, you will expand your professional networks. That's like the most important thing, essential thing for a lot of students who want an MBA. Not only because it looks good on a resume or a business card, but professional networks definitely helps the business growing. And leadership development, to develop your leadership skills. For example, for the MBA program at University of Tampa, before it starts, we do a workshop, a leadership workshop, and one of the features is the leadership class, and we do like personality assessment on all these things that other programs won't have, students won't have this opportunity, so that's one of the gain. Enhance your business expertise. So in the MBA program, you will see a lot of classmates, they have work experience in their fields for many years, but they might be they might have computer science background, engineering, arts, medical experience with these things, but business knowledge is really important to make sure that you're a good leader in your organization. And also you will grow your global vision by having the global experience. There are some travel courses offered by certain programs. You can do research with professor on international trips. So these are the non-money factor gains, but there are also costs. So we say opportunity cost. That means if you're not doing an MBA at this time, continue your career or switch to another company, what you may not get, you might miss. So possible career advancement, opportunity, and pay raise. So when you're doing your MBA, maybe your previous colleagues got a new position, get a raise. So after your MBA, maybe you get a raise, but these we consider as one of the opportunity cost. And also for some people who choose to study away from their current city, you're away from your family and friends, it's a new environment for you. It takes time to adjust, and that's one of the factors. And also, MBA program is not easy. It requires a lot of work. It's different from work, but that means your mindset has to be switched back to studying mode, and a lot of study time is required. So ask yourself and try to analyze the gain and cost, financial factors and non-financial factors. That's what we put here, return on investment. There are also there's a ranking like by I think one of the media's website on the best value school. So you can take a look as a reference on what do you think and take a look at the schools on the list.
So next we're going to talk about the final step when you're doing a school research, and that's accreditation and ranking. So that's the time when you want to ask yourself, how important is ranking and accreditation for you? In our opinion, accreditation is more important than ranking because accreditation is an objective review of a school's curriculum and what they're educating their students on, and is granted based on the school's educational performance, whereas a ranking can tend to be subjective. Different media outlets will publish different rankings, and there's so many different ways to break down rankings. So it's important to look into specific program rankings if you're going to choose ranking as important, more so than overall rankings.
Yeah, definitely. For College of Business, business accreditations, there are AACSB and two other ones. So these three listed at the left bottom corner are definitely the three business accreditation. You will see a lot of schools in the U.S. have, not a lot, but it's really good, important to make sure it's AACSB accredited. So that logo, you need to look for that if you're looking at school's website or any information you are reviewing. And just like David mentioned, I personally believe accreditation is more important than ranking, but like top 10 school, top 20, that's definitely great school. But if the school is about 100, 200, and that means most importantly, if it's a good school for you. And we talked about all these information, all the things you care about, and we did school research on these things. So try to make sure that the things you care the most will play the most important part on your decision. So ranking, accreditation, definitely need to look at it. Accreditation is more important than ranking, but ranking is not everything. All right, so we asked 4 questions to ourselves and did some 3 major school research, and now it's counting down 4, 3, 2 steps for school list. And over here we put long list and short list. So the first one is coming up with a school list. That's after all the research questions were done. And we put before GMAT. It can be a longer list to start with. Just write down what are the schools you really want to go or really like in a perfect world situation. This is before your GMAT. And again, we use GMAT here because it is required, but we do not want to make you feel like it's the most important factors just because GPA is difficult to change it, improve it at this moment, and your background work experience is all set. So one flexible factor is the GMAT, so that's why we use before and after GMAT as the divider. So this can be a long list, just write down any school that you like, not like a lot, but it will be a longer list. Since we're talking about GMAT, I just want to bring it up, looking to the GMAT timeline. When are you planning on taking the exam? It's an exam requires intensive study in order to get a good score, to get admitted to the school you really want to be, want to start the MBA programming. So give yourself sufficient time. Usually it's at least 3 to 6 months to study. Also setting a target score is important. So just to be safe, 20 points above the average for your top choice schools, so you can make sure you feel safe in order to get into those schools.
So before the GMAT, you have a longer list. Once you take the GMAT and you got your unofficial score from the testing center and you see how you performed, now it's time to shorten that list, and as the slide says, time to be more realistic with yourself. So, not everyone's going to be able to get into the Booth School of Business in the University of Chicago. So once you have your score, you take a look at it and you match the schools where the average GMAT's right around there, and you make sure that they match with your long-term goals. So once you shorten your list, this is going to be the list of schools that you're actually going to apply to. And typically it's between 4 and 8 schools. And you kind of break it down. So if you notice, there's little 3 steps at the bottom of this slide here. You have stretch schools, which, you know, your GMAT score is good enough to get into, but it might be a little bit of a challenge to actually be accepted based on your entire application. So maybe your GPA wasn't so high or something like that. Target schools, and this is where you're going to be a strong candidate. So that's, you know, more than likely where you would end up. And then, of course, safety schools. They're, you know, you're definitely going to be a shoo-in. You are almost guaranteed to get into them, but you know that you'll still actually really enjoy being a student there, and will actually get a lot out of the education from that school. So that's kind of how to break down the list, and then you can start with the final step.
Yeah. So the last step we talked about, well, we asked questions, did school research, made a long list, and turned it into a shorter list. So the last step, you need to make sure you're satisfied with the school list you come up with, so you're more motivated if you're planning on taking the GMAT, or you want to improve your score, take it the second time in order to get those schools. So finalize the school selection, and it's not the time to take a break yet, because after this you will start the application process. And also we're going to do another webinar on getting ready for the MBA game plan part 2 application process. So this webinar is more about your thinking process, how to choose the best school for you. Many people talk about different things, and you will need to make sure your experience for the MBA program, you're going to enjoy it. You're going to get something from it compared to before and after. So yeah, and we're going to jump into the question and answer section. Feel free to let us know if you have any questions relevant to applying to programs, school selection, or so, and David and I will be more than welcome to answer your questions.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take a look.
Well,
Right, let's see.
so is a GMAT score of 720 enough to get into a business ranking among the top 10? So that's actually, I mean, 720 GMAT is definitely pretty good. However, you know, it's actually going to depend on the business school. Some schools place more weight on your GMAT score, whereas others actually place less. So I do know that a 720 is fairly high. I believe, I want to say Harvard looks for 700 or above. So.
Yeah, so every school is different, and like we mentioned earlier, GMAT is important, but it's not the only determinator. So they're definitely their requirement minimum score, but depends on your background and your performance at interview, your GPA, all these things. That's what admission committee look for. There are students getting to like the top 5, top 10 school with a 590 just because their experience is really impressive. Yeah, 720 is something good to start with, looking to other factors because that's not the only thing they look for.
Mm-hmm. Another question, what are the best schools for marketing for a guy with 8 years of experience?
Yeah, so the question is, what are the best schools for marketing for students, for applicants with 8 years of work experience?
Yeah, and again, that's going to kind of be a personal decision. So you're going to want to base your research off of schools that are most well known for their marketing programs. That is unfortunately not something that I can really answer for you. You're just going to want to look in, start researching programs, see which ones are well known for marketing, and then base your decision off of that.
Yeah, one of my recommendation is you have your list for the schools, maybe like a longer list. Get in touch with the admissions counselor in that school and ask them what is the minimum requirement for your work experience, maybe like how many years, like a certain number, and they will give you a brief idea of how likely you may get into the program. But definitely don't be afraid to talk to your counselors. They're not scary. So ask them the requirement listed, do some research on minimum scores, and find good recommenders for recommendation letters. Yeah. Hopefully that helps. So let's see. One question is about how to apply for University of Tampa. So since the question popped up, we just want to mention about our admissions requirement. So for us, we require, it's for standard, we require GMAT score. And for international student, language score, TOEFL or IELTS, we actually accept GMAT or GRE. And also we will need transcript from previous college level studies. Besides these 3 key documents, we will also need 2 recommendation letters, personal statement, and professional resume. So these are the things required to complete your application. If you have any specific question on like what is the certain score or so, definitely let us know, and let us know via email, and we'll love to answer your questions. So these are the required documents.
So another question, somebody is mentioning that that they believe that they didn't really do that well on the GMAT, that they took it recently, and that they want to know if they can leverage unique work experience with a maybe a lower GMAT score. And my answer to that would be definitely. Although the GMAT's an important, it's an entrance exam, that's really all it is. It's just a test to see. From all the GMAT material that I review, they just say the GMAT is a test to see how good you are at taking the GMAT. So business school is not going to be structured anything like the GMAT. The schools look at it because they just want to see what your quantitative and qualitative skills are. Your math skills, algebra, maybe some geometry, trig, and calc, and then your verbal skills, sentence structure, things like that. However, your personal experience, work experience, your performance in undergraduate, things outside of work, extracurricular activities, that's a lot of schools place a lot of weight on that. So just because you don't have, a 700 plus GMAT doesn't mean that you're not going to be a competitive candidate. It's going to be all on how you frame your resume. If a personal statement's required by a school, the things you say in there, and that's what a lot of schools will place some weight on when making a decision. So the GMAT isn't everything.
Yeah, and also GMAT is definitely important if you get into top schools. But look at research more. Like look at the range of the scores of the students they accepted and see where you're at. And for going to interviews, definitely be prepared. That's an important suggestion from counselors. Be prepared to go to your interviews. If you have anything that stand out, make sure you practice it, and make sure you explain it clearly to your counselors at the interview.
A question from Rahul asks, what is accessed on personal interviews? I can't speak for other schools. I can tell you that we are just going to access everything that you give us with your application at the University of Tampa. So we'll take your resume, recommendation letters, personal statement, and application, and look into that as a holistic approach if you come in for it.
Yeah, for the some schools require interviews, but some is based on it's selective. It's not for all students. So when you're going to interviews, make sure that you do not only share things listed on your resume, on your personal statement. You don't need to repeat those. Something that make you stand out that are not listed on paper, something that really interesting, makes you like different from other business applicants. These things you can bring it up to the personal interview. It can be in person, it can be on Skype. So dress professionally, present yourself well, and that's the key to MBA interviews.
And that actually looks like that was the last question. So if anybody has anything else, feel free to type it. If not, thank you for coming.
Okay, yeah, so we're just going to wrap up the webinar. If you have any more questions, feel free to let us know. Thank you very much.